So this is Martin Palethorpe from the Pragma Group. I am spending some time on this webinar with Tim Andrew and Ian Milbourne, who will introduce themselves in a second. So the purpose of this is to talk a little bit about Pragma and Pragma's work with the mind, with leaders. So I'm going to spend some time interviewing Tim and Ian about their experiences and hopefully give some nuggets that will be useful to other leaders who are listening to this. So to start off with, could you guys just share a little bit about yourself? It'd be great to hear a little bit about your role, what you do, and yeah, a little bit about your situation.
Ian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi, Ian. So I am a partner at Notion Capital, which is an early stage technology venture firm that we established back in 2009. I first met Martin probably 2 years ago. He came to one of our founders retreats and did a presentation on the quality of mind and effectiveness. And a lot of what he said resonated very strongly with me. I've been working hard for 20 years. I've fallen into certain traps, certain preconceived ideas, and his topics and subject matters made a lot of sense. So off the back of that, I then went on Martin's 3-day quality of mind course in April this year. And since then, I have engaged him as a mentor, and I probably see him every 6 to 8 weeks.
Tim Andrew, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Locals. First met Martin, I think I probably met about a year ago now, after getting introduced via Notion as well. And I think really resonated with me I've had conversations and exec coaches before who've talked about the stories that we create in our own head and how they can sometimes get in the way of being effective. And after going on the Quality of Mind program, one of the things I think it really helped, which we'll probably explore in a bit more detail, is actually how my brain does what it does, and being aware of that and then being able to apply that in some more useful circumstances, particularly as a leader of a fast-growing software company.
Great, thank you for that. So I guess it'd be good to hear from each of you then on what were some of the things that you were challenged by before that in some way was addressed through the quality of mind work?
Sure. I mean, I'll kick off. I mean, for me, as I said, being a partner in Notion is a full-time hectic job. I've worked with the same team of people for 15 years. Had a messy divorce that I went through a few years ago, and just generally, I'd felt some time that not my mental health as such, but my brain was just too noisy. There was a lot of activity going on in there. And actually, what I said to Martin at the start of the course was, he asked me what would my wish be at the end of this course, and I simply said, can you just stop the noise in my head? And by that, what I mean is, I realized I wasn't being as effective as I could be because I had a lot of, internal politics, for want of a better phrase. So the big realization for me of coming out of the 3-day course was to sort of sit back and go, that's okay. Now I understand why I'm doing that. And as a result of understanding why I'm doing that, I then started to do it a lot less. And if I look back to April before I went on this course and how I am now, I mean, I'd say I'm complete other people in work and the way that I try and lead people and the way that I understand people and myself.
So what's changed, Ian?
Well, I think what's changed is that you realise as a result of going on this course, you realise that there's a lot going on in my head that is out of my control. That I'm quite capable of layering up a bunch of thoughts. The thought ladder analogy was good. I can layer on multiple thoughts about a person or a subject or a situation, and actually they're not relevant. They're probably made up. They're biased by me. And by recognising that and recognising that other people are doing exactly the same thing, you just become a lot more effective. The noise stops, as I said. And one of the themes of the course is that there's innate wisdom in all of us, and if you can just get into flow state and stop the noise, you can access it. So it's a big change for me. The noise has stopped, and I'm much more effective.
Awesome. Okay. And I'm just thinking of people listening to this that will be trying to relate to it. I guess for me, what it sounds like happens is the noise is just thought, right? It's just a hell of a lot going on in your head.
Yeah, constantly.
And I think the problem before this work is that it's people's relationship to that noise. They get immersed in it. They're totally immersed in the noise. They're living it, they're experiencing it. And as a result, that thought, it feels noisy. And for me, what I think I'm hearing in what you're saying is your relationship to the thought has shifted, which means that the thought might still be there. It might not be. It might still be there. And if it is there, it's not as noisy as it was before.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, look, my brain is my brain. It's going to carry on at the speed that it does, but I don't engage with those thoughts, anywhere near how I used to.
And what's the benefit to you then of that happening?
Well, I think first and foremost, my relationship with my colleagues is so much better because I'm only engaging with them around work. I'm not bringing my own thoughts into a situation. So I become better, and people have commented that post going on this course, they've seen me behave differently. Someone said to me, "Oh, you've got the spring back in your step," which is obviously great to hear. And I think it's that piece around relationships and understanding that everybody else is just like me and have their own thoughts and ideas. And I'm much more tolerant, I guess, now of other people. I'm much more understanding of other people, and actually. When working in teams or with colleagues, the standard of work and output has increased purely, I think, as a result of the fact that I'm more in tune with how they're thinking and how they work than I ever would have been, and that just comes from the understandings and the learnings that you get on the course.
Awesome. Okay, Tim, what would you like to say about your journey through this?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think a lot of what Ian's mentioned really resonates with me as well. I guess just the slight flavour I'd give to it is, for me, what it's helped me out with is speed of context switching. And just to explain that a little bit more, so I'm husband, got an amazing wife, 4 kids who are rapidly becoming big teenagers. We live in the UK. We've got people and family back in Australia. We've got and in addition to that, I've got 40 odd team members in locals, all with their own journeys going on across 3 different time zones now. And when you have and then all the clients and investors and partners on top of this, you end up with layers and layers of people with different journeys, different agendas, different things that they need from you in order to help them perform, and also for us to make sure that the business is performing in the way we want it to. And quite often that can emerge in a day. It'd be quite easy to have 25, 30 very different conversations on a massive range of topics, of which you need to bring your whole self to in order to be as effective as you can. And I think being able to switch context from letting the one conversation you just had go and then launch straight into this next one, having been on the course, it sort of allows me to see that, that's interesting. I'm still bringing that last conversation with me into this one, being able to park that, let go of the fact that I don't need to think of it anymore and just be present in the one I'm in now. And I'm still very much in the practice mode of that, but being aware of my thinking and the way it's gone has helped me get into context switching much quicker, for one point. And the other is it's allowed me to tap into a bit more of that internal wisdom, because if thinking and thoughts are persisting about a topic and they keep popping up, it means that I maybe need to give that one a bit more attention, because it's not just going away. And so I need to stop, think, get my thoughts in line about it, get some internal closure on it, and then move on. And just that awareness now of how my brain is operating has helped me become a lot more effective than I was before. I haven't had the luxury of and feedback or comments about getting a spring in my step like Ian, but would love to get that. But so I'm not sure if I've changed externally to people, but internally I feel much more effective than I was before.
Great. And you talked a bit about wisdom there. What did you learn about wisdom, or what's your perspective on wisdom now, and how you access it? Maybe you could share a bit more.
So I think I think a lot of people can relate to. I think Ian used the word flow before as well. That feeling of which I think you don't recognise when you're in it, but sometimes you can come out of it afterwards. And we talked a bit about this on the course, about that feeling of flow state, of things just happening, having a sense of confidence, not really having to think too much, and things happening. And so wisdom links into that state for me, because you're not having to go through a whole translation in your head, create layers of thought about something, and then say, this is my opinion on it. You have opinions, thoughts, actions come out of you because you have an innate wisdom that you're just helping to surface as well. And a recognition that state exists, and an ability to try and get to that state more often is something I like. I think when we first met, I think I relayed a story about being some of my best thinking is done when I'm on a plane. There's a few less distractions. It's probably something to do with oxygen starvation and cabin pressure as well. But sometimes I get some of my best thoughts and thinking done when I'm stuck on a plane, can't really do too much, and there isn't much stimulus going on around me. And I recall quite distinctly a time of on a journey. I think it was from Melbourne to Sydney or vice versa, and getting this overwhelming feeling that things are going to be all right. There's success here. I'm not sure what form that's going to take, but I don't have to worry about it. The end outcome will be fine. Yeah. And since that point, I guess being able to rely on that, wisdom, confidence, flow, I think that they're interchangeable words for me, that mean that, I can rely on that. And it's the thing that when things aren't going well, I don't have to overindulge in thinking about them too much, because I know this is, a down cycle when there's going to be many ups.
Yeah, brilliant. So there's a couple of things that dawn on me there. Is one of the things I come across with CEOs and leaders, in particular in fast-moving, high-growth startups, and you often get people that are doing it for the first time. And when they're doing it for the first time, they tend to be looking outside for the advice. Like, what do they think? What do my advisors think? What do other people think? What should I do? What do the books say? What does the advice say I should do? And I think this resonates deeply with our program, which is actually, it's about, sure, take some advice, listen to some people, but ultimately it's the wisdom inside you that's got to guide how you live, how you lead, what you do with your company. And that for me is a really important point for all of us, actually, is to continue to look for, whether we call it wisdom or intuition or gut or whatever, there's an intelligence inside us that we sometimes just don't access enough. And the other element to this is that wisdom is just thought, but it's a richer quality of thought that shows up when we're not caught up in the noise in our head. And I guess what we're about on this work is helping people decipher in some way between the noise in the head, the worry, the fear, the busyness, to tune into deeper quality thought to guide you. I don't know if either of you got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that was the impact. I think it gave me, in some respects, an appreciation that there's almost a mechanic to it. I know it's still just thought, but I have a mechanism now to be able to almost sort of push back and go, that's interesting, I'm having those thoughts, and observe them in process rather than progress, rather than be stuck in the flow of having them, if that makes sense. So I think just having that as a mechanism then allows you to tap into that better quality. just because you can kind of step away from your thoughts, have a look at them, and then step back in. And it almost feels like physical. It almost feels like a physical mental process, if that makes sense. It's probably doesn't, but how it feels.
I like the way you're talking about thought, because most people just live in their thought, not even realizing that they're just living in the experience that they're having, created by their thought. They're not conscious of what thought is doing. And I love the way that you talk, Tim, is that it seems to me like your awareness of this neurological activity that we call thought has shifted, that it's giving you some more power over it. Does that?
Yeah, I guess to give some maybe a practical way of how I think about doing it sometimes as well is when I recognise that, oh my God, I'm wrapped up in my own head at the moment, just to close my eyes for a minute and actually just make my brain listen to all the external things that are going on. What sounds can I hear? What does the chair I'm sitting on feel like? Just sort of go to other external senses, which, and just, shut my eyes and let that happen, to sort of focus on those external things and realize that these are the external inputs coming in, and it gets a lot quieter really quickly, because all the internal mess goes away for maybe just a few seconds, but clearing your head, but telling myself I need external input changes the dynamic of what's going on as a technique, and then I can realize how much was internal noise that I was caught up in versus actually what's going on physically around me.
Right. Okay. Good. Any reflections from you, Ian, on the topics, wisdom or thought?
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with what Tim said. I mean, for me, I'm quite a cynical person. I always have been, and I like to challenge concepts when they're taught to me, and to pour through it and really do a lot of work on understanding things that they're right. And this course, I came out after the third day. I think I said to you, we went for a walk. I said, this is probably the first time in my life that a concept and a technique's been explained to me, and I just felt at one with it and kind of instantly got it. And almost in a way, you might say that my inner wisdom knew that was the case, but it had been shrouded by all of these thoughts, and something just unlocked in me. And I remember walking out thinking, wow, that's quite a significant change in the way that I am now looking at the world and people. So it's quite hard when I left. I would see people doing it, and I would have to really bite my tongue to stop saying, "Boy, you're just making that up," because it's not very helpful for people. But the flip side of that is that you're immediately observing when it's happening to others, and then you can. It hasn't happened to me that much. I've been very fortunate since leaving the course that my noise has dropped, but it's still there. But I just view it as exactly that, noise. I could be quite capable, as I'm sure all of us could, of sitting there for 30 minutes, having a fantastic debate with myself in my own head, trying to strategize all kinds of outcomes, and I just don't do that anymore. And not because I'm relaxed or laissez-faire. It's just because actually I realise that I don't need to, and I just go with my inner wisdom and my flow. And I've been hopefully doing that and trying to do that ever since I left the course. And as I said, everyone around me has commented the results are good.
Great. So let me move on and ask you, either of you, about your leadership of others, your relationship with and leadership of others. How has that shifted, and what learning have you got about that other people might be useful for other people?
For me, it's building on what we've been discussing. I mean, it's the realization, as simple as this sounds, but actually to grasp it is a very, very big concept. But it's just a realization to me that everybody else is just like me, and everybody else has got their own playbook and their own set of thoughts. And you've got to kind of cut through that. So the way that I've chosen to take that is to just recognize that it's going on in people and to be tolerant of them and to kind of empathize might be a word. It's probably the wrong word in this situation, but to be more empathetic to people and to accept what is going on in a way that I wouldn't have done. And by doing that, you then focus on the task at hand. Let's say you're trying to we're trying to assist one of our portfolio companies, might be a relevant Notion task. And rather than worrying about how it's going to proceed, or trying to worry about why this person's thinking that, you just get with the person and focus on the task and get on with it. So my leadership, if you like, my relationship, my interaction with other people is just fundamentally different from how it would have been this time last year. And that, for me, is the kind of pervasive change across everything, how I now lead and how I work.
Awesome. I think so. I'm just sort of relating that to the program in some way, and I think what you're touching on is one of the concepts we talk about is separate realities. We all live in entirely separate realities, and they're each totally unique to us, and they're totally created by individual thought. So you can be, all of your behaviors will be a result of the thought that you've got going on in your head and the experience that that's creating. And I guess we tend to live in this world where we're judging others all the time. We're judging them, we're criticizing them, we don't understand their behaviors or anything. I guess what you're suggesting here is, when you embrace that everyone is entitled to and does live in an entirely separate reality created by their own thought, then you're more able to tune in, to spend time exploring that reality that they've got, and or appreciating and accepting that it's fine that they've got some different way of seeing it. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's that appreciating that they have a different way of seeing it, and there is really no right or wrong way of seeing it. Whereas in the past, I would have thought, well, why doesn't this person? Obviously, people are different, and you appreciate that. But if it was something like, I do a lot of finance work. If it was a financial concept that to me was quite obvious, I would really struggle if somebody else didn't see it that way or couldn't get it. Whereas now I'm just like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's just one example. That's the example of. You could change that to any number of examples. It's that just innate understanding which I did not know this time last year. It's that innate understanding that everybody has their own world, their own reality, their own thought process, and no one's right and no one's wrong. And who am I to say to somebody else what they should or shouldn't be thinking or feeling?
Yes. Tim, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ian used the word empathy as well. I completely agree. I think it's an ability to connect faster, really, because you have an appreciation that someone's going to be coming from a different perspective, from a different reality, and to that point, it's not a theirs is right, yours is wrong, because that saves an awful lot of time. I find as well. So as a leader, I think hopefully it's made me a bit more effective and efficient, actually, because I don't spend a lot of time worrying about whether I'm convincing them to a different perspective or a different reality, because who's to say mine's right or wrong? I just we just cut to this is what it is. You might see this differently, but this is what's going on. What wisdom have you got to bring to this that we could do? And and here's what wisdom I can add into this. Did we get to a solution or not? And if we didn't, maybe we need someone else's perspective on it. But if we did and we're happy with it, then great, let's move on. But it takes an awful lot of unnecessary emotional energy away from it. I think one of the I'm not sure it's a negative, but some people can perceive sometimes you don't hit the highs and the lows. It's like, oh my God, don't you care about this? Care very deeply about it, actually. But I'm not worried about whether there's going to be a good or a bad outcome, or it can be good or bad. It just is. And so, let's deal with it from there. So I think people can perceive you to be calmer in situations that they're perceiving to be more stressful at times. But, it helps me understand that they are finding it stressful, and, using language and observation to help them understand that, yeah, sure, I can appreciate that it is stressful for them, or it is really exciting and positive for them. And I can join in part of that journey, but without getting wrapped up in the too high or too low aspects of that. So I think maybe makes it more of a balanced leadership style than perhaps I had before.
Okay, great. So any other topics that you think you'd like to share something on that would be useful for anyone listening to this?
I think it's, what I would say is this. It's, we've had a half-hour chat about some topics and themes that sound quite simple, but you can't really do it justice in a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour kind of environment. So it's, I think if anyone's listening to this and having the same kind of experience that I had 2 years ago where themes are resonating, then go and spend some time and maybe have a session with Martin or go on the course, but get out of your office and your user environment and start to learn about these things, because I would use the word transformational, and I spoke to 2 people that had gone on Martin's course before I went, and they used the same word. They said, look, this is transformational. So I would encourage anybody who thinks that this discussion is interesting to go and follow it up.
Great. Yeah. I really appreciate that, and obviously, this video is designed to promote our work. But let me just step a little bit back from that, which is, I would say the thing that fascinates me, you see, is that whatever you're doing in your life, but in particular if you're a leader, you've got challenges. Your challenges are how to be as effective as possible in life. And we do all sorts of things to be effective. We go on other courses, we read books, but we never spend any time looking at or learning about the number one thing that has most impact on how we feel and how we are in life, which is our mind. So, yes, we'd love it if people came and found out more about the Quality of Mind program, because it is transformational for people. But actually, whether they do that or not, I'm inviting and suggesting that anything that they're doing to explore and learn about their mind and how they're thinking and how they are then, as a result, feeling and operating, it's a lifelong journey and a critical one for people to go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think the other thing is, I guess the thing I'll just add to that is giving people a sense that, it's a valid topic for a leader to spend some time doing. And it's, to your point, it's a super critical one. But, and when I went on the course, I was a bit, 3 days of, doing this is a big time commitment. But by the end of it, I was thinking, well, I could do with that 3 days quite regularly. It felt in a way luxurious, in a very positive sense, to spend that much time thinking about how my brain works, and being able to start being effective with that. I feel like it'd be useful to be at least an annual thing, if not more frequently, because to your point, it's a journey. I feel somewhat transformed coming out having done it, but I also recognise very clearly that there isn't actually an end solution and destination. You don't sort of come out and then you're fixed and that's it and well done and off you go. It's not like learning a shortcut in PowerPoint or something that now you've got that. You have to keep practicing at it, and you fall in and out of having great quality of mind. And so rehearsing and practicing and trying to get into habits is the best way to address that. And I think summarising that up would be, as a leader, it's almost it should be a mandatory thing. You need to spend time working on how your brain works and getting it better performing, because otherwise you are not being as efficient as you could be as a leader.
I think it's a great point, and I just look at the sporting world, and now obviously everyone has a sports psychologist, because they realise the significant impact that the mind, and they don't just have one for a little bit, they have one ongoingly, because they realise the impact that the mind has on performance. Well, I guess my vision is that actually, well, it's no different in business at all. We're all striving and to perform, and so it's how we unlock and learn about the mind to impact performance, be it in sport or business or life.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys. I really appreciate your time. It's really great to connect with you, and just want to say thanks very much, and sharing all your wisdom.
No problem. Thank you.
No worries at all. And I'll just add, if anyone wants to have a chat to understand what it's like, just feel free to share my details with them, and anyone who listens to this and wants to know a bit more firsthand, then they should reach out and talk to me directly. More than happy to share experiences a bit more directly.
Thank you, Tim. Cheers, guys.
No worries. Thanks,
Thank you. Cheers.